What we know about the mind so far? The brain sculpts not only who we are but also the world that we experience. It tells us what to see, what to hear and what to say. It expands to accommodate a new language or skill that we learn. It tells stories when we're sleeping. It sends alarm signals, and it spurs the body to run or fight when it senses danger. The brain adapts to environments so we aren't annoyed by a constant smell in an old house or the constant hum of the air conditioning. Our brains look to the sun and tell our body what time it is. The brain stores memories, both painful and pleasant. How mysterious is our mind? Stick around till the end to dive deep into it. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon if you really want to enjoy. It's not every day that scientists discover a completely new type of cell in the human brain, especially one that's not found in neuroscientists' favorite non-human subjects, mice. The rose hip neuron, so named because of its bushy appearance, had eluded scientists until this year, partly because it's so rare. This elusive brain cell makes up only about 10% of the first layer of the neocortex, one of the newest parts of the brain in terms of evolution. The neocortex plays roles in vision and hearing. Researchers don't yet know what the rose hip neuron does, but they found that it connects to other neurons called pyramidal cells, a type of excitatory neuron, and puts the brakes on them. The brain is magnetic. Our brains are magnetic. Or, at least, brains contain particles that can be magnetized. But scientists don't really know why these particles are in the brain or where they originate. Some researchers believe that these magnetizable particles serve a biological purpose, while others say the particles got into the brain because of environmental contamination. This year, scientists mapped out where these particles are located in the brain. The results of their study, the researchers said, provide evidence that the particles are there for a reason. That's because in all the brains the scientists examined, from 7 people who died in the early 1990s between ages 54 to 87, the magnetic particles were always concentrated in the same areas. The investigators also found that most parts of the brain contain these little magnets. Many animal brains also have magnetic particles, and there's even some suggestion that animals use these particles to navigate. What's more, a type of bacteria called magnetotactic bacteria use the particles to orient themselves in space. The brain may contain bacteria. Our brains might be teeming with bacteria. But don't worry, it doesn't look like they cause any harm. Previously, scientists thought that the brain was a bacteria-free environment and that the presence of microbes was a sign of disease. But preliminary findings from a study presented this year at the large annual Society for Neuroscience scientific meeting found that our brains could actually house harmless bacteria. The researchers in that study had been examining 34 post-mortem brains, looking for differences between those with schizophrenia and those without the condition. However, the researchers kept happening upon rod-shaped objects in their images, and these shapes turned out to be bacteria. The microorganisms seemed to dwell in some spots in the brain more than in others. Those areas included the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex and the substantia nigra. The microbes were also found in brain cells called astrocytes that were near the blood-brain barrier, the border wall that guards the brain. The findings haven't been published in a peer-reviewed journal yet, and more research is needed to confirm the findings, the scientists said. A second brain in the gut? Millions of brain cells live in the large intestine, and because these cells function without any instructions from the brain or spine, scientists sometimes refer to the mass of them as the second brain. But this mass also has a scientific name, the enteric nervous system. And a new study, done in mice, shows that the system is pretty smart. It can fire synchronized neurons to stimulate muscles and coordinate their activity so that it can do things like move feces out of the body. The actual brain, the one in your head, can also do this, synchronize the firing of neurons, in the early stages of brain development. This means that the neuron actions in the gut could be a primordial property from the first stages of the second brain's evolution. Some scientists even hypothesize that the second brain evolved before the first and that this firing pattern comes from the earliest functioning brain in the body. Your brain on stress? Bad news, stress may shrink the brain. That's according to a study published in October of this year. In the study, researchers looked at more than 2,000 healthy, middle-aged people and found that those with higher levels of the stress hormone cortisol had slightly smaller brain volumes than people with normal amounts of the hormone. People with higher cortisol levels also performed more poorly on memory tests than did people with normal levels of the hormone. Both findings, it should be noted, are associations between stress and the brain and not cause and effect findings. Stress is normal for the body. During moments of stress, cortisol levels rise along with those of another hormone, adrenaline. These hormones work together to throw your body into a fight or flight response. But once the stressful part is over, cortisol levels should decrease. They don't always do this, however. Some people, especially in this modern life, can have elevated levels of cortisol for long periods of time. Reducing stress, such as by getting better sleep, getting exercise, engaging in relaxation techniques and taking cortisol-reducing medication, could have a range of benefits, the researchers said. Young cells in old brains or not? Our bodies continuously dispose of old cells and make new ones. But for decades, scientists believed that this cell turnover didn't happen in aging brains. In recent years, however, studies done in mice, and some early studies done in humans, have raised questions about this notion. This year, a paper provided what may be the first strong evidence that older brains do make new cells. The researchers studied 28 post-mortem, non-diseased brains from people who were ages 14 to 79 when they died. The scientists sliced up each brain's hippocampus, an area of the brain that's important for learning and memory, then counted the number of young cells that weren't fully mature. The researchers found that older brains had as many new cells as younger brains did, but that the older brains made fewer new blood vessels and connections among brain cells. To complicate matters, however, a different study, published a month before this one, found the opposite, concluding that adult brains do not make new cells in the hippocampus. The disagreement could be due to the way the brains were preserved in the two studies and the kinds of brains that were examined. Research on the brain is surging. The United States and the European Union have launched new programs to better understand the brain. Scientists are mapping parts of mouse, fly and human brains at different levels of magnification. Technology for recording brain activity has been improving at a revolutionary pace. The National Institutes of Health, which already spends $4.5 billion a year on brain research, consulted the top neuroscientists in the country to frame its role in an initiative announced by President Obama last year to concentrate on developing a fundamental understanding of the brain. Scientists have puzzled out profoundly important insights about how the brain works, like the way the mammalian brain navigates and remembers places, work that won the 2014 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for a British American and 2 Norwegians. What do you think about mysteries of human brain? Let us know below in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss our future videos.